Deep in the mountains of Colorado lies a place so secure, so isolated, that even the world's most dangerous men disappear behind its walls. A prison designed not to punish the body, but to erase the mind. This is ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But behind the concrete and steel lies something far darker, a glimpse into the future of human isolation. The fortress in the desert. There's a stretch of land just outside Florence, Colorado, 37°56'34 N, 105°08'14 W. From above, it looks peaceful, empty. But buried within that calm lies the most secure prison ever built on American soil, the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, better known as ADX Florence. The name doesn't carry the same infamy as Alcatraz or Sing Sing. It doesn't need to. Because ADX isn't about escape, it's about erasure. This prison was born from blood. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, America's most violent inmates, gang leaders, terrorists, and convicted killers, were turning existing federal prisons into war zones. Guards were stabbed, riots broke out, and gang wars spilled from the streets into cell blocks. At the time, the federal government faced a terrifying question. How do you contain men who will kill even in captivity? The answer would take the shape of an experiment, one that blurred the line between security and psychological warfare. In 1994, construction began on a $60 million fortress that would change corrections forever. It wasn't built by dreamers or reformers. It was built by architects of control, people whose blueprints measured not comfort but containment. Every cell, corridor, and corner of ADX was designed with a single philosophy. Complete isolation equals complete control. Robert Hood, who later served as warden, would call it a clean version of hell. Even he admitted, you could be in that cell for 23 hours a day, and the only thing you'd see move was your own reflection in the stainless steel mirror. The prison sits 5,000 feet above sea level, surrounded by barbed wire, guard towers, and motion detectors embedded in the desert ground. The facility spans 37 acres, but its real power lies in the invisible systems, layers of steel doors, automated locks, and a staff trained to keep human contact to a bare minimum. It's home to around 400 inmates. But not just any inmates. Here, you'll find the names that once defined American fear. Terrorists from 9/11. Drug lords. Serial killers. The Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, until his execution. Cartel kingpins, mafia bosses, and even FBI traitors. Each man, locked in a cell barely larger than a parking space. Each one cut off from the world. ADX isn't where sentences are served. It's where sentences end. When it opened in 1995, ADX was meant to be a last resort, a place for the uncontrollable. But over time, it became something more, a symbol of the American obsession with control, with safety, with punishment. Its location wasn't accidental. The desert isolation mirrors its purpose. Miles from the nearest city, the thin air and empty horizon reinforce the feeling that escape, not just physical, but mental, is impossible. Inmates are brought here in armored convoys. Their names fade from headlines, replaced by numbers and silence. Once inside, even the guards rarely call them by name. Everything is routine, procedural, emotionless, by design. To understand ADX is to understand a philosophy. If you remove every stimulus, every interaction, every ounce of control from a human being, what's left? The Bureau of Prisons called it administrative maximum security. But others, including psychologists, human rights observers, and even former guards, call it something else: modern solitary confinement perfected. And as we'll see, that perfection comes at a cost, one paid in human sanity. Because ADX isn't just a prison. It's a mirror, showing us how far we're willing to go in the name of order. The men who vanished inside ADX Florence, every footstep is measured. Every sound deliberate. Here, the walls don't echo back your voice. They swallow it. 400 men live in this fortress of silence. Yet for most of the world, their existence ended the day they arrived. These are not inmates. They're ghosts with criminal histories so vast that the government decided no ordinary cell could contain them. And here, in this place beyond redemption, even monsters become shadows. For almost 17 years, Ted Kaczynski waged a one-man war against modern technology. He mailed bombs to universities, airlines, and corporations, killing 3 people and injuring 23. His motive? A manifesto: industrial society and its future. He saw technology as the destroyer of human freedom. Captured in 1996 after the FBI discovered his cabin deep in the Montana woods, Kaczynski became inmate #04475-046. His new home, ADX Florence. In his 12 by 7-foot cell, the former Harvard mathematician spent decades writing letters, thousands of them, still railing against the modern world. He refused therapy, refused interviews, refused to see anyone from his past. His mind, razor-sharp, isolated, undisturbed. He once wrote, "The truth is that I feel no remorse. The system I oppose is far more violent than I ever was." Until his death in 2023, Kaczynski remained one of ADX's most chilling residents, proof that even total isolation couldn't silence conviction. Before September 11th, there was February 26, 1993. A rented Ryder van packed with 1,200 pounds of explosives detonated beneath the World Trade Center, killing 6 and injuring over 1,000. The man behind it, Ramzi Yousef, the nephew of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, had planned for one tower to collapse into the other. It didn't. But the message was clear: America's enemies were evolving. Now, he spends 23 hours a day locked in his concrete cell at ADX. He eats alone, exercises alone, speaks to no one. The light in his cell never turns off. The sound of footsteps in the hall is the only reminder that life exists beyond his door. When interviewed by a prison psychologist, Yousef reportedly said, "I sleep well knowing I'm at war with America. Even here, I am not defeated." His words echo the purpose of ADX, not just to detain, but to extinguish, to make defiance meaningless in a vacuum of silence. 168 lives ended in 12 seconds. 168 people who woke up for work, never knowing they'd be part of the largest domestic terrorist attack in U.S. history. Timothy McVeigh, a former U.S. Army veteran radicalized by government distrust, orchestrated it all. When he arrived at ADX, he reportedly said little. He kept his cell meticulously clean, his routines rigid, his emotions flat. Even other inmates described him as ghostly calm. He spent only 6 years at ADX before his 2001 execution, but his presence lingered, a specter of what the facility was designed for. The impossible inmate. The man the world couldn't risk forgetting or freeing. Sunglasses, El Chapo Guzmán. The king in the cage. Few names evoke as much fear or fascination as Joaquin El Chapo Guzmán, the former head of the Sinaloa cartel. He escaped prison twice in Mexico. Once through a tunnel dug right into his shower floor. When he was extradited to the U.S. in 2017, there was only one destination secure enough to hold him: ADX Florence. But this time, there would be no tunnels, no bribes, no guards willing to look away. El Chapo's cell is identical to every other inmate's: 7 by 12 feet, concrete bed, concrete desk, concrete stool. A small slit of a window, angled so precisely that he can see neither the sky nor the horizon. Just sunlight, filtered, unreachable. He is allowed 1 hour of exercise per day, alone, in a cage slightly larger than his cell. Even his meals are passed through a slot, minimal human contact, maximum control. For a man who once commanded armies and billions, the silence of ADX is the ultimate defeat. Power means nothing in a place where no one can hear your voice. Brained the human shadows. Each of these men once dominated headlines, nations, even the fear of millions. Now they live in cells so small they can stretch out their arms and touch both walls. Their worlds are reduced to routine. Wake up. Eat alone. 1 hour of exercise. Back to the concrete box. No visits, no conversation, no noise except the hum of fluorescent lights. In a report by Amnesty International, a former guard described the experience. You walk through ADX and you feel the weight of silence. You can't see them, but you know they're watching you through tiny windows, like ghosts behind glass. They call this administrative segregation. But to those who've lived it, inmates and guards alike, it's something else. A slow-motion erasure of identity. And it's working. Because in the years since ADX opened, escape has become unthinkable. Violence, nearly non-existent. But so has hope. Every system here is precise, effective, merciless. And as we move deeper, we'll see how ADX isn't just built to confine bodies, it's built to control the mind. The architecture of control, every fortress has a blueprint. But ADX Florence isn't just a fortress, it's a machine. A machine built not to punish, but to control. Here, architecture is an art. It's psychology poured in concrete. Building construction, the design of silence. From the air, ADX looks sterile, mathematical, a gray hive carved into the desert. Each building is identical, connected by narrow hallways that form a labyrinth of restricted zones. The entire prison is divided into units: general population, special housing, control unit, and the most feared of all, the Range 13, where the most dangerous or high-profile inmates live under near-total sensory deprivation. The design eliminates chaos before it begins. Every hallway has blind spots, not for inmates, but for guards. Mirrors and cameras cover every corner. Doors don't open manually. They're controlled electronically from secure stations. Even if a guard wanted to open one by hand, they couldn't. The system doesn't allow it. It's not just about keeping inmates in. It's about keeping everyone else, including emotion, out. Brain control through design. Each cell is a masterpiece of calculated isolation. 12 feet long, 7 feet wide, concrete walls reinforced with steel. A single narrow window, 4 inches wide and 42 inches long, angled upward, deliberately designed so inmates can see only the sky, never the mountains that surround them. Inside, the furniture isn't furniture at all. It's part of the room, molded from concrete. The bed, the desk, the stool. Even the mirror is polished steel, impossible to shatter. Everything you see in an ADX cell is designed around one unspoken rule. You control the environment, or it controls you. The lights are on nearly 24 hours a day. The temperature is controlled remotely. The meals arrive through a slot the size of a shoebox. Even the shower, located inside the cell, operates on a timer to prevent misuse. No touch, no sound, no privacy, no escape. A former warden once said, "We didn't just build cells. We built a way to manage thought." Video camera, the invisible guard. The power of ADX lies in its invisibility. Every inmate is watched, always, but never sees who's watching. Motion sensors track movement. Cameras monitor behavior. If an inmate screams, no one reacts. If he breaks down, the camera captures it, but no one comes running. It's surveillance as psychological warfare. When you don't know if you're being watched, you begin to watch yourself. That's the secret of control. It's not the walls that keep them inside. It's the idea that the walls are always watching. Locked Range 13, the heart of the machine. Range 13 is where time stops. This is the most restrictive unit in the most secure prison in America. Each inmate here lives in total isolation, 23 hours a day alone, 1 hour of solitary recreation in a cage outside, alone again. Human contact is almost non-existent. Even the guards avoid eye contact. Prisoners here have included the likes of Ramzi Yousef, the Unabomber, and Zacarias Moussaoui, the so-called 20th hijacker from 9/11. One former warden described Range 13 as a place designed for no mistakes. Another guard was more blunt. You leave your soul at the door when you work there. Breaking the human clock. Time behaves differently inside ADX Florence. With no natural light and no sound, the brain begins to lose its rhythm. Day and night blur. Hours stretch into infinity. Former inmates have described hallucinations, hearing voices, seeing shapes in the concrete, losing track of days entirely. One said, "You stop feeling like a person. You start feeling like a memory." Psychologists call it SHU syndrome, named after the special housing units used for solitary confinement. Symptoms include paranoia, anxiety, depression, and self-harm. In ADX, those aren't side effects, they're inevitable outcomes. When you build a place to erase chaos, you risk erasing what makes someone human. Balance scale, the price of perfection. For decades, ADX Florence has been praised as the pinnacle of prison design. Zero escapes, minimal violence, total control. But behind the statistics lies a darker truth. Dozens of suicide attempts, multiple deaths, and ongoing lawsuits claiming that the very design of ADX constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. In 2012, a class action lawsuit filed by inmates claimed that the isolation was driving them insane. One federal judge compared the facility to a sensory deprivation experiment of the Cold War. The government eventually settled, agreeing to improve mental health care, but the core design of ADX remains unchanged. Because changing it would mean admitting that the system itself was built on pain. Desert, the prison of tomorrow. In many ways, ADX Florence is the prototype for the future of incarceration, where technology replaces touch and silence becomes the ultimate weapon. Across the world, countries have studied its design. Supermax facilities modeled after ADX now exist in Australia, Brazil, and parts of Europe. Each one, a monument to control, and a warning about what happens when isolation becomes policy. When the architects of ADX laid its first concrete slab, they believed they were building the safest prison in history. They were right. But they also built something else. A mirror reflecting the darkest corners of human justice. Because the question isn't how far we can go to control others. It's what happens to us when we finally succeed. A glimpse into isolation's future. They call it the Alcatraz of the Rockies. A place for the irredeemable, the worst of the worst. But step back for a moment. Listen to the silence. And ask yourself, if a system can remove every trace of humanity from its inmates, how long before it begins removing it from us? ADX Florence is more than a prison. It's a vision of control perfected, of isolation industrialized, a monument to fear, built on the belief that safety can only exist when compassion is locked away. And as the gates close on another day inside America's most secure prison, the world outside moves a little closer to its image. Connected, monitored, controlled. Because the truth is chilling. ADX Florence isn't the end of the line. It's the beginning of what's next.